Remember Susan Boyle, the shy, soft-spoken woman who walked onto the Britain's Got Talent stage in 2009 and in 90 seconds left the entire world speechless? That moment, that voice, that face when Simon Cowell went from smug to stunned. It was more than just a viral audition, it was a cultural reset. Now, over 15 years later, where is she? What happened after the cameras stopped rolling and the world moved on? Let's rewind. Before fame, Susan lived a quiet life in a tiny Scottish village. No glitz, no glam, just church choirs, local gigs, and a cat named Pebbles. Most people overlooked her. Many even laughed. But Susan had one thing most people didn't, a voice that could silence a stadium. The night she sang I Dreamed a Dream changed everything. The audience went from snickers to standing ovation in seconds. Even Simon's infamous poker face cracked into disbelief. That clip didn't just go viral, it broke the internet, becoming the most watched video of 2009. Yes, even more than President Obama's inauguration. Susan didn't win the show, but honestly, who remembers the winner? She became the real star. Her debut album, I Dreamed a Dream, shattered records. Pre-orders exploded. Amazon literally couldn't keep up. She became a global sensation overnight. Proof that you should never judge a book by its cover. But fame wasn't always easy. Susan had her struggles, anxiety, the pressure, the sudden spotlight. But through it all, she stayed grounded. No celebrity drama, no diva behavior. Just a woman doing what she loves, singing her heart out. Today, she's still performing, still recording, still living in that same village. And yep, still dreaming. But now she's inspiring millions who've ever felt underestimated or overlooked. Because Susan Boyle didn't just sing a dream, she lived it. And she's not done yet. Her debut album hit the shelves and boom, instant phenomenon. I Dreamed a Dream didn't just chart, it dominated. #1 in the UK, the US, and pretty much everywhere music charts exist. Susan Boyle went from church choirs to chart wars and won. Overnight, she wasn't just famous. She was global. From Tokyo to Times Square, everyone knew her name. But behind the standing ovations and platinum plaques was a woman still adjusting to life in the spotlight. Because fame, let's be honest, isn't always fairy dust and flashing lights. The pressure was real. The nonstop attention, the tabloid headlines, the expectations. And while Susan kept doing what she does best, releasing albums, touring, performing, she also quietly stepped back from the full-on media frenzy. Probably a smart move. Even icons need to breathe. Still, the numbers don't lie. 25 million records sold. Over 120 gold and platinum certifications. Albums released in 35 countries. Susan Boyle didn't just make it. She made history. And in 2024, she's still out there, still singing, still standing for something bigger than herself. These days, she's using her voice to raise awareness for autism spectrum disorder, a cause close to her heart. Because for Susan, music was never just about the fame. It was always about connection. Her story didn't start on a stage. It started in a modest home in Blackburn, West Lothian. The youngest of 9 kids, her dad, Patrick, was a WW2 veteran and a local pub singer. Her mom, Bridget, a talented pianist, encouraged Susan to sing from day one. Think about it, karaoke nights at their place? Probably legendary, but growing up wasn't easy. Susan was often misunderstood, bullied, misdiagnosed. For years, she believed oxygen deprivation at birth had caused a learning disability. School was tough. Confidence? Practically non-existent. Then, in her early 50s, a breakthrough. She was officially diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, part of the autism spectrum, and discovered her IQ was actually above average. After a lifetime of feeling less than, Susan finally understood her own mind, and instead of hiding it, she went public, smashing stereotypes and becoming a powerful advocate for autism awareness. She turned her vulnerability into her superpower. But long before the diagnosis, long before the fame, Susan never stopped chasing the music. She trained with vocal coach Fred O'Neill, dabbled in acting, and even auditioned for My Kind of People with Michael Barrymore back in '95. It didn't lead to a big break, but it didn't stop her either. By 1998, she was all in, recording demos at Heartbeat Studio pouring every penny she had into tracks like Cry Me a River and Killing Me Softly. She sent tapes everywhere, record labels, radio stations, anyone who'd listen. Spoiler, most didn't. But she kept going. Because dreams don't die when the world ignores you, they just get louder. And then, in 2009, Susan Boyle walked onto that stage, and the world finally heard what she'd been singing all along. She sent her demos to everyone, record labels, radio stations, anyone with ears. Nothing stuck. The world just wasn't listening. Yet then, years before her name would trend worldwide, Susan recorded a charity track for a local album called Music for a Millennium Celebration, Sounds of West Lothian. Only 1,000 CDs were ever made. It's basically a hidden gem now. And on that rare disc, a haunting, heart-wrenching version of Cry Me a River. One local reviewer couldn't stop raving, calling her voice heartbreaking and admitting it was stuck on repeat. Susan Boyle was quietly breaking hearts before the internet even knew her name. After her Britain's Got Talent audition went viral, that old Cry Me a River recording resurfaced, and hello. Magazine called it the final proof that Susan was born to be a star. Proof the world had slept on her talent for far too long. But let's be clear, Susan didn't just stumble onto the BGT stage. Her journey there was long, messy, and filled with doubts. Her biggest supporter? Her mother. Always in her corner, always encouraging her to go further than the parish choir or the occasional competition. Susan almost auditioned for the X Factor, but skipped it, convinced they were more interested in looks than talent. And honestly, she wasn't wrong. When Britain's Got Talent came around, she nearly bailed again, thought she was too old, that no one would take her seriously. But her longtime vocal coach, Fred O'Neill, gave her the push she needed. Susan, get out there and show them what you've got. And then came the final spark, her mother's passing. Grieving, heartbroken, but more determined than ever, Susan decided she would honor her mom the only way she knew how, by sharing the voice her mother always believed in. So when she stepped on that stage, it wasn't just about chasing a dream, it was a tribute, a promise. And with that one performance, Susan didn't just win over an audience, she honored her mom's memory in front of millions. In August 2008, she took a chance and auditioned for Britain's Got Talent at a local tryout in Glasgow. They gave her a number, 43212, nothing fancy, just another contestant. But when she walked onto the Clyde Auditorium stage, everything changed. She told the judges she wanted to be as big as Elaine Paige. People laughed. Then she opened her mouth. I dreamed a dream started. And jaws hit the floor. When that episode aired in April 2009, over 10 million people watched it live. The rest of the world caught up online, and the internet basically exploded. Amanda Holden called it a massive wake-up call. Elaine Paige herself, she said Susan was a role model and even offered to sing a duet. It didn't stop there. Susan's performance was so moving, it actually boosted ticket sales for Les Miserables in Vancouver. Even Les Mis producer Cameron McIntosh praised her rendition. She wasn't just impressing fans, she was impressing legends. Susan Boyle walked onto that stage as an unknown, and walked off as a global phenomenon. Susan made it to the Britain's Got Talent semifinals, and when she sang Memory from Cats, the world held its breath. She didn't just sing it, she owned it. The public vote poured in. Everyone thought the finals were hers. But then, plot twist. She came in second to the dance group Diversity. Was it shocking? Absolutely. Disappointing? Maybe, but Susan didn't lose. Not really. Over 17.3 million people tuned in for that finale, making it the most watched in the show's history. And even though she didn't take home the trophy, Susan walked away with something far more powerful, the love of the world. But fame isn't always kind. Right after the show, the media frenzy turned from celebration to scrutiny. Suddenly, the press wanted every detail, her mental health, her personal life, her past. The pressure became unbearable, and for a moment, Susan cracked. Exhausted, overwhelmed, and burned out, she checked into a private psychiatric clinic for rest. She needed a break, from the noise, the flashbulbs, the expectations. Even Simon Cowell, who's not exactly known for being soft, told her she didn't have to do the BGT tour. The Prime Minister sent his well wishes. The world, for once, slowed down and let her breathe. But just 3 days later, Susan was back, stronger, braver, more determined than ever. She didn't just show up, she shined. Out of 24 tour dates, she performed at 20. From Aberdeen to Birmingham, crowds were on their feet. The Belfast Telegraph said she performed like a seasoned pro, so much for crumbling under pressure. Then came November 23, 2009, a date every Susan Boyle fan remembers. She released her debut album, I Dreamed a Dream. And just like that audition, the world couldn't get enough. The album exploded, selling over 410,000 copies in the UK in 1 week. That made it the fastest-selling debut album in UK history, surpassing even Leona Lewis's Spirit. In the US, Susan was no one-hit wonder either. Her album sold 701,000 copies in its first week, a debut most artists only dream of. And yes, that's the kind of dream Susan sang about and made come true. The album topped the Billboard 200 for 6 weeks straight and sold over 3 million copies in America by the end of the year. Only Taylor Swift's Fearless beat it out. But when it came to physical CD sales, Susan won. I Dreamed a Dream became the best-selling physical album of 2009. Around the globe, her success was just as massive. Over 2 million copies sold in its first week worldwide. In Italy, it made history as the first debut by a non-Italian female artist to hit #1. That's not just success, it's a legacy. And as if that wasn't enough, she wrapped up the year with her very own TV special, I Dreamed a Dream, the Susan Boyle story. From a quiet village in Scotland to topping global charts and lighting up television screens, Susan Boyle did more than sing, she inspired. She proved that no matter your age, background, or battles, it's never too late to chase your dream. Her TV special, I Dreamed a Dream, the Susan Boyle story, was the perfect victory lap. 10 million viewers tuned in across the UK, and in the US, it became the most-watched show in TV Guide network history. Not bad for someone who, just a year earlier, had walked onto a stage as a total unknown, armed only with her voice and a dream. But Susan wasn't done. She surprised everyone again with her second album, this time a Christmas record titled The Gift. And in classic Susan fashion, she made it feel personal. She launched a competition called Susan's Search, inviting fans to audition for a chance to sing a duet with her on the album. One lucky winner got the experience of a lifetime, singing alongside a global icon. Released on November 8, 2010, The Gift felt timeless. By now, Susan was no rookie in the studio. Her producer, Steve Mack, said they took a classic approach this time. Full band, live rehearsals, emotional connection first, recording second. It wasn't just about making music, it was about making meaningful music, and it worked. By November, The Gift was #1 on both the UK and US album charts. That made Susan the first woman in history, and only the third person ever, to have 2 albums hit #1 in less than a year. Let that sink in. She celebrated the season in style, performing Oh Holy Night on The View, and later gracing the stage at NBC's Christmas at Rockefeller Center, singing Perfect Day and Away in a Manger beneath the iconic tree. And just when you thought she might take a breather, she popped up again, this time on America's Got Talent in 2011, performing on the live semi-final results show. It was a full-circle moment, reminding audiences just how far she'd come. That same year, she dropped her third album, Someone to Watch Over Me, continuing to blend timeless songs with her signature voice. A year later, in November 2012, she released Standing Ovation, the greatest songs from the stage. This time, she added a new skill to her repertoire, piano. Yes, Susan had been taking lessons in secret, dreaming of the day she could accompany herself. A reporter from The Sun revealed that she always loved the piano and was determined to one day play on stage and in the studio. Her determination was just another reminder. Susan Boyle never stopped growing. And speaking of big names, October 2012 brought a massive moment. The legendary opera tenor Placido Domingo released an album titled Songs, featuring a breathtaking duet with Susan on Shania Twain's From This Moment On. It was elegance meets emotion, a blend of voices from two very different worlds, creating magic. But Susan didn't stop at music. She took a leap into acting, landing her very first film role as Eleanor Hopewell in The Christmas Candle, based on the book by Max Lucado, set in a 19th-century English village desperate for a miracle. The film was pure holiday heart, and Susan fit right in. Released in U.S. theaters on November 22, 2013, and in the U.K. a week later, the film marked yet another milestone. Susan couldn't believe it. She gushed about how kind the cast and crew were, how surreal it felt to be in a movie. But she wasn't just acting, she was also singing. She recorded Miracle Hymn, a moving original track featured in both the film and on her next holiday album, Home for Christmas, released the very next week. The album even included something no one expected, a duet with Elvis Presley. Yes, you heard that right. Through modern studio magic, Susan Boyle sang alongside the king of rock and roll himself. From a small Scottish village to duets with legends, living and legendary. Here's your final segment, rewritten with heart, clarity, and emotional impact. It brings Susan Boyle's story full circle, inspiring your audience while tying up her journey with warmth and a sense of wonder. Perfect for a viral YouTube video ending. Susan's duet with Elvis Presley on "O Come All Ye Faithful" was another surreal moment in a career already filled with magic. But music wasn't the only thing keeping her busy. She continued to shine on screen, appearing in several documentaries. I Dreamed a Dream, The Susan Boyle Story, An Unlikely Superstar in 2011, and There's Something About Susan in 2013. That last one gave fans a rare, raw look behind the curtain, airing as Susan Boyle, her secret struggle in the U.S., and the duets kept coming. In October 2013, the legendary Johnny Mathis released Sending You a Little Christmas, featuring Susan on a beautiful rendition of Do You Hear What I Hear? Their voices blended like warm cocoa and snowflakes, pure comfort. In 2014, she released her sixth album, Hope, an uplifting collection of inspirational ballads and feel-good tracks that lived up to its title. One standout moment? Her live performance of You Raise Me Up with the Lakewood Church Choir. The album debuted at number 16 on the Billboard 200 and spent hot 35 weeks at 1 on the top inspirational albums chart. It went on to sell over 115,000 copies out in the U.S. by 2016. Not bad for someone who once doubted she had anything worth sharing. Later that year, she performed Mull of Kintyre at the Commonwealth Games opening ceremony in Glasgow, welcoming Queen Elizabeth II herself. A humble singer from Blackburn, now singing for royalty. After that whirlwind, Susan took a well-earned break in 2015. She spent time with family and friends, stepping away from the spotlight and delaying her next album. Even stars need to recharge. But Susan wasn't done surprising us. In 2019, she returned to the stage with America's Got Talent, The Champions. Determined to show the world she still had it, she performed Wild Horses and earned a golden buzzer from Mel B straight to the finals. She didn't make the top 5, but her performance reminded everyone exactly why they fell in love with her in the first place. Today, Susan Boyle still lives in her childhood home in Blackburn. She bought it in 2010 with her earnings. Not a mansion, not a palace, just the family home she grew up in. Her father passed in the 1990s, and her siblings have all moved on. She never married, choosing instead to care for her beloved mother until her passing in 2007 at age 91. After her mom died, neighbors say Susan withdrew from the world, heartbroken and silent. Who wouldn't? Grief doesn't care about talent or fame, but slowly she found her way back to music and to herself. Susan's a devout Catholic, once the voice of her church choir, and still visits elderly neighbors when she can. Before the fame, Her life was simple, quiet, routine, just like so many of us. And maybe that's what made her story so powerful. She was us. Then she opened her mouth and became so much more. In 2012, she was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, a form of autism. In true Susan style, she spoke about it openly in 2013, helping to raise awareness and smash stigmas. She also lives with epilepsy, and in 2013 was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. But none of it has dimmed her light. She once joked that online dating wasn't for her, saying her luck would be so bad she'd end up with her limbs scattered around Blackburn bins. Dark humor? Absolutely. But Susan's always been real. In 2013, she proudly supported the Better Together campaign, standing against Scottish independence. Not because she doesn't love Scotland, she does, but because she believes it can remain strong within the UK. Her message was clear. Unity doesn't erase identity. She's a teetotaler, never been about the drinking life. And though she's largely kept her romantic life private, it was reported in 2014 that she was dating a man close to her age, her very first boyfriend. In 2022, Susan suffered a minor stroke, a moment that reminded fans how fragile even our strongest voices can be. But in June 2023, she returned to the Britain's Got Talent stage once more, smiling, glowing, and standing tall. When asked about her health, she didn't sugarcoat it, but she showed up. Because that's what Susan Boyle does, from a quiet Scottish village to a global stage, from self-doubt to self-belief, from overlooked to unforgettable. She dreamed a dream, and then she lived it. If this story moved you even half as much as it moved the world, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with someone who needs a little reminder that it's never too late to shine. This isn't just Susan Boyle's story. It's a reminder that the world still has room for magic, and that sometimes the greatest voices come from the quietest corners.